I'm going to take you to Paris now, you lucky people, although not, given what we're about to see. This is yet again more rioting and civil unrest in Paris. So what we're looking at now is protests. It's part of a nationwide day of protests in France against pension plans. So scenes a bit like this, massive in Paris. We are expecting there to be other outbreaks of civil unrest in other parts of the country as well. And for those people who are listening on radio, I'm going to describe the scene now. There appears to be plenty of people in the crowd wearing protective gear themselves, as well, of course, as the riot police. And there's a bit of a charge taking place at the moment. People may remember on this very show last week, scenes similar to this. And what happened very quickly, and this is why we're going to be keeping a close eye on it, is that as soon as scenes like this happened, the French riot police got involved. There was tear gas, what looked to be tear gas anyway. There were things like smoke grenades. They also seemed a bit perfectly happy to use the batons. And the protesters themselves were setting fire to shop fronts and causing a whole load of damage. I'm not sure if we've got any sound on this clip at all at the minute. If we do, at some point, we might be able to just hear what it sounds like. Yeah, there we go. So we could just turn that up a bit and just maybe just get a flavour of what the atmosphere's like there. OK, so, yeah, rather a lot of chanting, and there we go. Smoke grenade being deployed. So there's a bank of French riot police there holding a line in the middle of a street in Paris, and they have organised pretty quickly. They ran from one end of that street over to the other, and the crowd is really jeering, and it looks to me as though we're seeing a new wave of police, all with white helmets on and what would appear to me anyway to be bulletproof, stab-proof vests. Now, these police are being pushed back now by the crowd, who are starting to throw objects at them, little projectiles. Looks as though there are bottles being thrown. I'm just going to give a warning now to everyone that, of course, we don't know what we're about to see. Could well end up being quite a disturbing scene there, so bear that in mind as I look at one individual who looks like just a normal member of the public there, being led away with blood on his face, surrounded by French paramedics and French police as well, who are now being pushed back from that main road down a side street. And this does look, I've got to be honest with you, as though it could get pretty dangerous, this, because the area that they're trying to hold there is relatively small. They're backing away. Hopefully that camera pans round again soon and we can see the kind of main thrust of the action, but certainly at least one person there with what seemed to be a relatively significant head injury. People are still gathering there, the police again. There's just a standoff taking place. Just a reminder, actually, in all of this, what this is all about, actually, which is about the rising of the French pension age from 62 to 64, and people are very, very angry about it, saying, especially the people who work in the public services in France. And this time last week, we've had people who are the French rat catchers, believe it or not, the rodent detectives, as it were, throwing the carcasses of rats at a town hall in France. And today, members of the public are back out in force again. Just a reminder as well that this is a nationwide protest. We're just seeing this in Paris now. We'll bring more detail to you from around the country. But riot police are clashing with protesters in the French capital. And one thing that is fascinating about this protest, actually, is how widespread it is. Now, these pension reforms were not actually voted on by the people, clearly, but they were also not really given due diligence in the French Parliament and in the French political arena. It was kind of waved through by Emmanuel Macron, and people are saying that this is him behaving like a little dictator. But one thing that is fascinating about it is the absolute breadth of people and the vast strength of feeling from all corners. You've got your usual people, you know, trade unionists and students who are not happy about it. You've obviously got the people who are approaching pension age, but you've also got, frankly, just a lot of ordinary French people, the kind of squishy middle class, who certainly, if you look at what would happen in Britain, really, you wouldn't necessarily see them out on the streets in force. I mean, when do you? But in France, that's not the case. And this is why I think Emmanuel Macron is particularly concerned by it all. But it's worth noting that this has been going on now, on and off, for at least 2 weeks, hasn't it? And it shows no signs of stopping. And we're just looking there at French police who are, well, it appears to me, pretty badly cornered, actually, on a high street in France, on a main street. And they've allowed themselves, certainly from the footage that we can see at the moment, they've allowed themselves to actually be surrounded by these protesters Again, I just wonder if we can turn that volume up a little bit again on this now and just see if we can get a bit some of the atmosphere once more. I've got a feeling that this might be about to get a little bit nasty because those French police are all backed up against a wall of a building and they are surrounded. There's probably about a 30-yard gap between those French police and the protesters. It's very difficult for me to tell at the moment how many protesters there are. French authorities, I think, have just deployed a smoke grenade, or may well be tear gas. We'll have to wait and see what the reaction is from the crowd there.